This group of 12th graders was headed to the outskirts for a field trip. Lost in their playful banter, they were completely unaware that from the moment they boarded the bus, they had embarked on a bizarre journey with no return. All of them were forced to participate in a bloody game of survival. Only the winner could escape alive. Upon arriving at the hotel at midnight, the honor student CO suddenly felt a sense of familiarity with the place. Thinking back, she realized the scene in her recent daydream was eerily similar to the hotel's layout. In her dream, she had seen a disheveled woman fall into the swimming pool. Afterward, all her classmates had transformed into monstrous figures with blank, white eyes standing upright. The terrifying experience was still vivid in her memory. However, CO didn't dwell on it and carried her luggage into the hotel with her classmates. Their teacher rushed over, instructing Jun-he and So-mi to look after everyone. He still had to pick up students from other classes. Gradually, some students realized there was no cell phone service at the hotel. Even the Wi-Fi was down. Wouldn't this mean they'd lose contact with the outside world? Many students began to show signs of worry. Suddenly, the lights in the lobby went dark. A timid girl screamed because a white figure was standing in the middle of the lobby. The athletic student threw a basketball at it, only to discover it was their classmate Hyo Yul playing a prank. Not only did he show no remorse, but he also added fuel to the fire by telling everyone that he had read online about this hotel. Apparently, a high school girl had mysteriously disappeared here before. His classmates quickly interrupted him, but CO took note of the story. After returning to her room, she asked her roommate to look it up online. But the internet was completely down, and her roommate had to give up. Just then, CO discovered that an app had been forcibly installed on her phone. Her roommate's phone was the same. A message appeared on the screen. Game start. Please check your occupation. Not just the two of them, every student in the class received the message. Each person was assigned an occupation, such as doctor, civilian, police officer. They were instructed to vote for the player who was the wolf before midnight. The student who received the most votes would be eliminated. At first, everyone thought it was just a silly game. Most of them voted for the classmate they disliked the most, which happened to be Hyo Yul, the one who had pretended to be the white ghost. But CO felt something was wrong. Clearly, everyone's phones couldn't connect to the internet. So how could an app be downloaded automatically? And how could the students use it to message each other? Her roommate also seemed puzzled. The more she thought about it, the more uneasy she felt. She sought out Jun-he. Jun-he went to the hotel office. Not only was their teacher gone, but even the staff had disappeared. CO tried the landline, but unfortunately, it was also disconnected. At that moment, a mysterious classmate ran up and invited CO to the pool. She didn't think much of it. As soon as she stepped inside, she noticed the familiar layout. Suddenly, the surrounding lights came on. It turned out to be CO's birthday. A few close friends wanted to surprise her. As a result, they got carried away and decided to throw CO into the pool. They only stopped when she was on the verge of tears. But So-mi didn't care and pushed her into the pool. CO struggled to resurface. Suddenly, she felt a strong force pulling her down from below. Looking back, she saw a woman with disheveled hair grabbing her. Fortunately, Jun-he arrived just in time and jumped into the pool to rescue CO. When she woke up again, she found herself in the infirmary. The strange experience was still fresh in her mind, but she didn't know how to describe it. Just then, So-mi entered with a group of classmates, crying and apologizing to her. CO didn't want to make a big deal out of it and generously forgave her. Jun-he was about to lead everyone back when suddenly, an announcement came over the loudspeaker. 1 minute left to vote. Everyone hurriedly grabbed their phones and saw a countdown timer on the screen. Soon after, the voting results were in. The person who received the most votes was, of course, Hyo Yul the prankster. The loudspeaker announced Hyo Yul's elimination. Everyone watched as he clutched his head in pain. When he looked up again, his eyes were completely white. Then, he suddenly dropped to his knees. Everyone recoiled in fear as Hyo Yul charged forward, crashing through the hallway window and jumping out. Even stranger, the classmates who had just been terrified now all fainted where they stood. The next morning, everyone woke up from their comas simultaneously. Recalling the bizarre experience from the night before, everyone was frightened and pale. Co was the first to get up and check the hallway window. Hyo Yule's body was already cold. The loudspeaker sounded again. Everyone checked their phones. A student had been eliminated by the wolf. They were prompted to quickly vote for the real wolf. At this point, everyone realized Hyo Yule, who was chosen yesterday, wasn't the wolf. The athletic student reacted the fastest. He wanted to go to the broadcasting room to see who was behind this twisted game. At that moment, a scream came from the restroom. Upon investigation, blood seeped out from under the opposite stall door. The class president pushed the door open, revealing a classmate lying on the floor, no longer breathing. Everyone finally realized the werewolf game on their phones wasn't a game, but a fight for survival. Co mustered the courage to touch the body, discovering the blood was still wet. The death must have been recent. The other students, ignoring this, asked Jun-he what to do next. Jun-he thought for a moment. The most urgent thing was to get out of there. The athletic student ran to the broadcasting room. He searched everywhere but found no one. Who was controlling the loudspeaker? Just then, everyone received a message. Jun-he told them to gather outside the hotel. The students exited the lobby, looked around, and decided to retrace their steps back the way they came. Unexpectedly, a roadside loudspeaker blared, ordering them to stay within the designated game area. Simultaneously, their phones issued a danger warning. Everyone noticed distinct white lines surrounding the hotel entrance. It seemed these marked the boundaries of the game area. A long-haired male student, unable to bear it any longer, screamed and ran. His friend tried to pull him back, but both crossed the boundary. Both were struck with splitting headaches. Would they be eliminated too? As if on cue, both of their eyes turned white. They lunged at each other. The loudspeaker announced, both eliminated players were civilians. Reminder to everyone to quickly find the wolf. Now, no one dared to take the game lightly. Jun-he could only offer helpless comfort. Maybe the teachers will be back soon. The timid girl cried and begged to go home. An angry classmate yelled, "If you want to leave, go by yourself. Don't ruin everyone's mood. We can't get out. We can't contact anyone for help. Are we supposed to just die here?" The delinquent student Kyung-jun discreetly spotted a set of keys on the counter and pocketed them. Co, refusing to give up, ran to the hotel rooftop, hoping to find a signal. Despite the disappointing results, she quickly discovered a new clue. The white lines defining the game area extended all the way to the mountains behind the hotel. Maybe there was a way out there. If not, perhaps someone to call for help. The class president had a similar idea. He intentionally approached the white lines to test them. Just before crossing, the loudspeaker and phones issued a warning. As long as they followed the white lines, they would be safe. They hurried back to tell everyone. The game area connected to the mountains behind the hotel. The class president needed a few physically fit classmates to explore with him. Everyone hesitated for a long time. Though most remained silent, a few were willing to risk it. So Mai, somewhat manipulative and eager to show off, ultimately decided to go along. Co, feeling unwell after falling into the pool the previous night, could only stay at the hotel and wait for news. But as soon as she saw them off, she suddenly heard someone call her name. Looking at her roommate's confused expression, could she have misheard? Passing by the bodies of her deceased classmates, Co felt a pang of guilt. She thought they should be properly taken care of. This hotel was so large, there had to be a dining hall, a cold storage room, or some similar place. Co was, admittedly, very thoughtful and meticulous. Before moving the bodies, she took pictures from various angles for future police investigation. She also happened to find the deceased student's phone in the restroom stall. But the phone was dead and wouldn't turn on. Kyung-jun, the delinquent, held the master key to the reception desk and proceeded to unlock each room one by one. Unexpectedly, he stumbled upon a mini-mart. It seemed they wouldn't be going hungry for the next few days. Meanwhile, Co, with the help of a few classmates, had moved the bodies of 4 deceased students into the cold storage. Checking their phones, she discovered they were all dead and powered off. The phones of the surviving students all displayed a 56% charge. It hadn't changed since yesterday. This bizarre situation left Co completely baffled. Her roommate, who was playing on their computer, suddenly had an idea. What if the space we're in isn't real? Jun-he and the others followed the white boundary line up the mountainside. Suddenly, a female student slipped and tumbled down the slope, terrifying everyone. Only after confirming she hadn't crossed the boundary line did everyone breathe a collective sigh of relief. Continuing further, they finally reached the summit. The area delineated by the white line ended here. One student seemed to have noticed something in the distance. Too far to make out clearly, he pulled out an HD camcorder. The result, he saw two figures standing in the distance. Everyone couldn't help but shout for help, but their cries went unanswered. It was then they realized the progress bar on the camcorder's display was still running. But the two figures remained frozen in place. Even the birds in the sky were motionless. Could the scene before them be staged? Before they could comprehend what was happening, a student exploring the boundary line on the slope lost his footing and nearly fell. Fearing she would be pulled down with him, So-mai quickly let go of his hand, causing him to tumble across the boundary. Immediately, he felt a splitting headache. He looked up, his eyes completely white. This was the penalty for crossing the boundary. The boy clutched his head with both hands, then rolled down the slope, snagged on a branch, and died instantly. His friends at the scene wept inconsolably. What kind of hellish place were they in? The students waiting back at the hotel received notifications of their classmate's death. It seemed the mountain exploration hadn't gone well. Soon after, Jun-he led the search party back to the hotel. Kyung-jun, the delinquent, was furious with their failure. Not only did you not find any rescue, but we lost another classmate. But the trip wasn't entirely fruitless. At least, they could now be certain they were completely trapped. The only thing left to do was play by the rules. Everyone in the hotel was divided into two factions. The doctors, police, and civilians formed one team. Kyung-jun and an unknown number of others formed the other. Only when one team eliminated the other would the boundary imprisoning them disappear completely. Kyung-jun approached Da-bum, the top student in their class, asking him to find a way out of this game. The most obvious clue was the daily vote before midnight. This was their only chance to eliminate the wolf among them. But there was too little information to analyze. Da-bum was stumped. Dissatisfied, Kyung-jun decided to try a different approach. He snatched Da-bum's phone and selected Da-bum's own name in the voting interface. The result? Invalid vote. Undeterred, Kyung-jun forced Da-bum's finger onto the phone to try again. The result remained invalid. Although they didn't understand the underlying mechanism, the system clearly prevented any attempts to exploit loopholes. Compared to the delinquents, the other students' thoughts were much more conventional. Groups of friends huddled together, discussing who the hidden wolf might be. Then someone whispered, "Yesterday, when everyone voted for Hyo Yul, it was all because of Ju Young's instigation." So-mai, agreeing, declared with certainty, "She's the hidden wolf. She wants to eliminate as many rivals as possible." Seeing the suspicious gazes directed at her, Ju Young panicked and blurted out, "So-mai is the wolf. I saw her push that student across the boundary on the mountain." So-mai immediately jumped up, frantically defending herself. If no one had intervened, the two would have undoubtedly come to blows. Jun-he, however, was much more rational. He didn't want to continue playing by the rules, because regardless of which side won, more than half of his classmates would perish. While searching the office, Jun-he suddenly heard a desk phone ringing. He picked it up, but there was no sound on the other end. Before he could put it down, another desk phone rang. Seo, hearing the noise, rushed over, finding Jun-he frozen in place, seemingly in a trance. She tried to pick up the phone, but Jun-he snatched it away. It was all fake. The phone lines weren't even plugged in. How could these phones be ringing? It defied any logical explanation. Stranger still, his roommate opened a file cabinet, only to find it completely empty. Everything that had happened felt meticulously orchestrated, designed to trap them in this game, forcing them to suspect each other until they completely broke down. This strengthened Jun-he's resolve to disrupt the game. A daring idea flashed through his mind. He was about to gather everyone in the lobby when he overheard that Kyung-jun had summoned Da-bum. He immediately led a group to the mini-mart. Sure enough, they found the delinquents bullying Da-bum. The athletic student stepped forward, warning Kyung-jun not to go too far. Feeling challenged, Kyung-jun advanced, ready to fight. Unexpectedly, even with 3 delinquents teaming up, they were no match for the athletic student. Enraged, Kyung-jun grabbed a pair of scissors. Jun-he quickly intervened. Seo also stepped forward, warning Kyung-jun, "With such aggression, aren't you afraid everyone will vote you out?" This gave Kyung-jun pause. Not only did he back down, but he also agreed to join the gathering in the lobby. It turned out Jun-he's plan was to confiscate everyone's phones. If no one could vote, then no one would be chosen for elimination. Most agreed this was a good idea, but some voiced their opposition. As the argument escalated, Kyung-jun surprisingly handed over his phone first. With him and Jun-he setting an example, the others found it difficult to resist. To prevent theft, they placed all the phones in a plastic container and took turns guarding it. As midnight approached, everyone grew tense. If this worked, no one else would have to die. When the second hand reached 12, the loudspeaker remained silent. Had they actually succeeded? But then, the system issued a warning. Players who do not vote will be eliminated. Immediately, a student fell from above. As he hit the ground, another student plummeted down. Panicked, Kyung-jun quickly pulled a phone from his pocket. It turned out he had secretly kept his own while collecting the others. The others, equally desperate, rushed to the container to retrieve their phones. It was a frantic scramble for survival, as no one knew who would be eliminated next. The lights in the lobby suddenly went out, as a penalized student had unconsciously unplugged the power cord. The loudspeaker, like a death knell from hell, began calling out student numbers. The price for being called was their life. Tragically, those who perished were mostly civilians, with only one wolf among them. In the chaos, So-mi managed to grab her phone. The first thing she did was vote for Ju-young, her rival. With someone taking the lead, others followed without hesitation. Ju-young sluggishly voted for So-mi, but it was too late to turn the tide. Jun-he's resourceful roommate managed to find phones for both Jun-he and Seo. But now they faced a dilemma, unsure who to vote for. Finally, after a quick discussion, they decided to pair up and vote for each other. If everyone received the same number of votes, no one would be chosen for execution. Eventually, the chaos in the lobby subsided. All the surviving students had cast their votes. The result was as expected. Ju-young received the most votes. As she ran from the lobby in tears, music suddenly began to play. Everyone fell asleep, just like the night before. The hidden wolf continued its killing spree. When everyone woke up, they immediately discovered another classmate had died. Clearly, there was at least one more wolf among the survivors. Many pointed fingers at Jun-he. If he hadn't collected the phones, there wouldn't have been so many casualties. Jun-he felt increasingly guilty, even contemplating crossing the boundary himself. Fortunately, he wasn't foolish enough to end his own life. Instead, he resolved to do everything in his power to help the remaining students escape. Everyone worked together to move all the deceased into the cold storage. Seo was about to leave when she suddenly noticed something unusual about the ventilation shaft on the wall. As she approached, the vent door opened automatically, and a disheveled woman rushed out. People in the outer hall, hearing the commotion, rushed in to find Seo lying on the ground, convulsing. It turned out that her chronic asthma had flared up. After Seo was taken to the infirmary, the other students gathered, discussing their next plan. Their only course of action now was to find the hidden wolf. Someone suggested that the police officer and doctor, who were on the villagers' side, might be able to help. The former could learn the designated player's role, while the latter could prevent the designated player from being eliminated. Unfortunately, they didn't dare reveal their identities. Otherwise, they would certainly not survive the night, as the wolf had the power to eliminate one player each day. Everyone fell back into a spiral of baseless suspicion. Someone asked Kyung-jun why he had hidden his phone. "Are you trying to get everyone killed so you can be the sole survivor?" Kyung-jun, exasperated, retorted that the accuser was the hidden wolf, even going so far as to use a phone to vote against him. His 2 lackeys quickly followed suit. The loudspeaker sounded again. A male student named Woo Ram immediately panicked. Fortunately, the others remained calm, refusing to blindly follow. Kyung-jun stepped out of the room and, prompted by his followers, had a realization. His arrogance was making him a target. If everyone voted for him, he would surely be done for. But Jun-he's authority was no longer what it once was. Except for a few close friends, the other students weren't inclined to follow his lead. Kyung-jun quickly found a loophole. He approached a few neutral students, using food from the supermarket as bait, successfully persuading them to vote for Woo-ram. As long as Woo-ram received the majority of the votes, Kyung-jun could sleep soundly that night. Jun-he and the others naturally noticed this. The arrow was already on the string, they had to shoot. Though they found the game distasteful, they had to play by the rules. They unanimously voted for the arrogant Kyung-jun. Now, he and Woo-ram had an equal number of votes. Only 2 students remained. They had to be swayed to their side. Seo, instead of participating, went to the ventilation shaft in the cold storage. She always felt that something was hidden there and decided to investigate. Just as she crawled halfway in, the wall suddenly collapsed. Caught off guard, she fell into a secret passage. Seo struggled to her feet and made her way to the end of the passage. A screen displayed numerous camera feeds. It turned out that their every move was being monitored. Suddenly, a shadowy figure darted past the doorway. Without hesitation, Seo gave chase. After turning left and right, she found herself in a strange space. No matter which direction she turned, the scene before her was identical. Seo grew increasingly panicked as she walked, as if trapped in a giant maze. She tried to use an app to message her roommate, but the result was message failed. Seo was sweating bullets. After wandering for a while longer, she suddenly noticed an open room. As soon as she ran inside, the door slammed shut. Finally calming down, Seo began to look around. An unlocked code box caught her attention. Inside was an old photo album. Flipping through it quickly, she saw group photos of students from previous years. Everyone's faces were scratched out, except for one girl who remained untouched. Meanwhile, the 2 students keeping watch at the ventilation shaft waited for news of Seo, but none came. Her roommate, Jeong-won, worried, decided to crawl into the vent to look for her. In the cramped space, she called out Seo's name, but there was no answer. Even stranger, the passage ended in a dead end. Jeong-won anxiously patted the wall. Suddenly, Seo, who was trapped in the secret room, was startled by a falling cardboard box. Upon closer inspection, she discovered a hidden passage behind the wall. Jeong-won had just crawled out when she heard a noise from the passage behind her. It was Seo, who had just found the exit. She recounted her strange experience and showed the peculiar group photo. Seo felt a growing sense of familiarity with the untouched girl in the picture. Perhaps this was the ghost she had encountered earlier. Everyone was talking amongst themselves when suddenly Jun-he rushed in, looking as if he'd seen a ghost or something even worse. It turned out his friend, Woo-ram, previously falsely accused of being the wolf by Kyung-jun, now had 6 votes against him, one more than even the arrogant Kyung-jun. They frantically searched for the 2 students who hadn't voted, urging them to vote for Kyung-jun. The boy with the center-parted hair, indecisive, was about to agree when his deskmate stopped him. They still hadn't confirmed whether Woo-ram or Kyung-jun was the real wolf. Voting blindly would be irresponsible with their own lives. So Mai was trembling with anger. Woo-ram himself was pale. He and Jun-he had helped everyone a great deal. Seeing their resolute attitude, Woo-ram angrily turned and left. As they opened the door, they happened to run into Mai Na eavesdropping. But the urgent matter was to go after Woo-ram and calm him down. Seeing the sense in their words, Woo-ram decided to return to the dormitory to compose himself. But with a matter of life and death at stake, how could anyone remain unaffected? Naturally, Kyung-jun was an idol in the mini-mart. But instead of rallying the neutral students, he sought out Mai Na. "You seem rather unsociable." He told her to lure Woo-ram out. He had a way to confirm who the real wolf was. So Mai was still trying to convince her friend to vote for Kyung-jun. Sensing the escalating tension, Jun-he quickly pulled her out of the room. Now's not the time to antagonize people. They intended to appease Woo-ram again, but discovered he had left the dormitory without them noticing. It turned out Mai Na had believed Kyung-jun's lies and tricked Woo-ram into coming out. As soon as he entered the room, Kyung-jun, lying in wait, knocked him unconscious with a club. He looked smugly at Mai Na and then slammed the door shut. It turned out Kyung-jun's method was to use violence to coerce a confession from her. The class president was also incredibly anxious. They searched all the surrounding rooms but couldn't find Woo Ram. They decided to split up and search. Jun-he went to the cold storage where he happened upon Seo and the others. Woo Ram could be in danger. We have to find him quickly. Indeed, by this time, Woo Ram had been tortured beyond recognition by Kyung-jun. At first, he tried to grit his teeth and endure. But when Kyung-jun pulled out a gleaming knife, Woo Ram finally broke down, sobbing uncontrollably. Shortly after, a piercing howl blared from the loudspeaker in the hall, followed by Woo Ram's sobs. He confessed to being the wolf and claimed to have attacked a student the previous night. Jun-he and the others quickly realized Woo Ram must have been coerced into confessing. They immediately ran to the broadcasting room, but the door was locked tight. They couldn't break it down. Seo, remaining calm, ran to the utility room and retrieved a large axe. Jun-he took it and furiously hacked at the door lock. As expected, they found Woo Ram covered in blood. The delinquent students and Kyung-jun were intimidated by Jun-he's aura and stood frozen in place, not daring to speak. Suddenly, a notification chime rang from a phone. It turned out the two neutral students had voted for Woo Ram. He now had the most votes and was about to be eliminated. Inconsolable and enraged, he decided to take Kyung-jun, the mastermind, down with him. But just then, the game's punishment descended. Woo Ram's eyes rolled back. Then, he turned the axe on himself. Following this, the loudspeaker announced his identity. Surprisingly, he really was the wolf. But there was no time for astonishment. Everyone scattered, seeking refuge in places they deemed safe. If all the wolves hadn't been eliminated, someone else would die during the night. As soothing music played, everyone drifted off to sleep. The night passed quickly. The students awoke to grim news from the loudspeaker. The center-parted boy's deskmate had been killed by the wolf. Everyone rushed to the rooms where they had hidden. They found the center-parted boy clinging to his deskmate, weeping inconsolably, including Woo Ram, who was voted out. They had lost two friends in one night. Even Kyung-jun felt immense pressure. He gathered everyone in the hall. First, he boasted about his actions in finding the wolf, then demanded everyone follow his instructions for the voting. Noticing their disdainful expressions, Kyung-jun resorted to his old tricks, accusing Jun-he of being the wolf because he had defended Woo Ram. Seo quickly stepped forward to defend him. Accusations without evidence are meaningless. Then, she remembered the surveillance room she had seen the previous day. A decision formed in her mind. By reviewing the surveillance footage, they could find last night's killer. Seo's roommate happened to be a computer whiz, but she struggled to connect to the secure network. Then they discovered the surveillance video from the previous night had been deleted. Kyung-jun, furious, assumed Seo was playing games and voted for her. His two lackeys quickly followed suit, and even the guy with the middle-parted hair copied them. Seo was shocked to receive 4 votes and immediately lost her composure. Jeong-won, who usually reminded everyone to vote, announced she could restore video deleted before 11 am. This prevented Seo from receiving more votes. Because of Seo's connection with Jun-he, So-mai, who always had a bit of a rivalry with Seo, secretly urged 2 other girls to vote for her. Lena, the girl with a limp who was quite friendly with Seo, immediately refused So-mai's suggestion. Meanwhile, Jun-he promised Seo he wouldn't let her be eliminated by the game. He suddenly had an idea, thinking that a fluorescent light might reveal any remaining bloodstains, possibly leading them to the previous night's culprit. However, Jun-he quickly realized that when Woo Ram bled, the blood had splattered on many people. At this point, Seo fell silent. Suddenly, her phone rang. Young had recovered the deleted video. Everyone rushed to the surveillance room. Just as the video played for a few seconds, the CPU suddenly sparked. Though Jun-he quickly extinguished the fire, Kyung-jun was livid. Just as he was about to explode, an image flickered back onto one of the monitors. It showed a long-haired woman whose face was identical to the one in the photo. All signs pointed to the existence of someone else in the hotel besides them, someone undoubtedly connected to the werewolf game. Seo argued that finding the mastermind behind the game was key. No one could guarantee they could leave even if they won. Finally convinced, everyone went to the swimming pool shown in the video, but they couldn't find the long-haired woman anywhere. Kyung-jun grew anxious. It's almost midnight. Are we just going to skip the voting? Seeing Seo's worried expression, Jun-he stepped forward, took a deep breath, and voiced his thoughts. There were 11 people total, and Seo had 4 votes. He suggested everyone vote for him, so Seo wouldn't have a majority. Moreover, she wouldn't be the only one with the most votes, which might spare her from punishment. Although hesitant, the others agreed due to the lack of time. When midnight arrived, they thought their plan had worked. However, the loudspeaker quickly announced that the 3 people who hadn't voted for Seo or Jun-he must vote again, choosing between the 2. Otherwise, everyone would be punished. Chaos erupted. So-mai was the first to choose Seo. Others urged the remaining 2 to hurry. Jun-he recalled how his previous attempt to exploit a loophole in the game resulted in the deaths of more than half their classmates. His plan had failed again. In despair, he stepped forward and declared himself the hidden wolf. I was the one who harmed our classmate last night, and I deleted the surveillance video. His confession was clear. The remaining 2 voted for Jun-he. So-mai and Seo were the most distraught, but the others dragged them away. Jun-he was left alone in the pool. His eyes glazed over, and he jumped in. Poor Jun-he was thus eliminated. As everyone else fell asleep as usual, the true hidden wolf finally revealed herself. It was none other than the cunning So-mai. The story flashes back to the first night at the hotel. While all the students were unconscious, a few, including So-mai, woke up. They were all wolves. The rules required them to eliminate a player before 6 a.m. the next day. Otherwise, one wolf would be killed. Having studied together for years, how could they eliminate one of their own? Time ticked by until 6 a.m. Suddenly, there was a commotion outside the door. A wolf player, eyes glazed over, repeatedly banged their head against the wall. The game's punishment was swift and brutal. This was the student who died in the bathroom the first night. After this incident, the wolves eliminated 1 person each day, targeting those most likely to be villagers. But tonight, So-mai's crush had died because of Seo. Unable to contain her rage, she decided to eliminate Seo herself. Just as she raised her weapon, the loudspeaker warned her. The target must be agreed upon by all wolves. So-mai reluctantly lowered her weapon. She hadn't expected that even after several wolves had been eliminated, there were still more than 1 remaining. The next day, when everyone woke up, Seo immediately ran to the pool. Seeing Jun-he floating in the water, she jumped in and pulled her lifeless classmate out. Regret and self-blame overwhelmed her. She knew Jun-he had sacrificed himself for her. Then, the loudspeaker announced, the doctor used their healing ability on Jun-he before last night's vote, making him immune to the penalty. As soon as the announcement finished, Jun-he miraculously revived. This was beyond scientific explanation. Seo, in disbelief, hugged him and sobbed. 2 classmates entered the bathroom and saw Curly washing clothes in the sink. Suddenly, the loudspeaker announced, the wolves eliminated Blondie last night. Everyone rushed to see. Sure enough, Blondie lay on the ground, covered in blood. Then, someone noticed bloodstains on Curly. Could he be the wolf? He looked near tears with worry. Both Curly and Blondie were Kyung-jun's lackeys, always together. Curly had woken up that morning to find Blondie dead and a large bloodstain on himself. Ignoring Curly's excuses, Seo carefully examined the scene. She discovered a crucial clue and took a picture with her phone. But one thing puzzled her. Blondie had been stabbed multiple times, the most brutal victim so far. Could the killer have a deep grudge against him? Meanwhile, Curly was panicking. He could only beg his boss, Kyung-jun, to clear his name, and Kyung-jun readily agreed. At the same time, people in the lobby noticed 2 new lines of writing on the wall. Jun-he is a villager. Could this be a message left by the cop? The cop's special ability was to investigate the identity of a chosen player. Although no one knew who wrote it, it was clearly meant to clear Jun-he's name. Yesterday, he had publicly confessed to being the wolf. Now, understanding his actions, everyone realized why the loudspeaker hadn't announced his identity after his elimination because Jun-he hadn't actually died. Then, everyone looked at Curly, the prime suspect. His face paled, and he quickly called for Kyung-jun. However, Kyung-jun's attitude had changed. He claimed that Blondie constantly mocked Curly, and they weren't as close as they appeared. Moreover, he said, The blood on Curly was unexplainable. Curly couldn't believe Kyung-jun was throwing him under the bus. He realized Kyung-jun was slandering him, but before he could react, Kyung-jun kicked him to the ground and was about to vote for him. Seo quickly intervened, warning Kyung-jun, "Don't try to manipulate public opinion." Jun-he stepped forward and snatched Kyung-jun's phone. "If you keep acting like this, everyone will vote you out." This was Kyung-jun's greatest fear. After his phone was confiscated, he stormed off. Curly loudly proclaimed his innocence. "I would never hurt Blondie. I'll find the killer quickly. Please don't vote yet." At that moment, the astute Da-bum pointed out a problem. The cop could use their investigative ability once a day, so why had they only revealed Jun-he's identity? But the others were preoccupied with Kyung-jun's ruthlessness. To save himself, he'd turned on his closest ally. Mai-na felt he was even more likely to be the wolf. Of course, she wasn't the only one who thought so. Curly had always believed Kyung-jun was loyal, but his sudden change of heart suggested a hidden secret. He carefully recalled last night's events. Only Kyung-jun knew his and Blondie's hiding spot. Suddenly, there was a noise outside. It was Kyung-jun preparing to leave. Curly quietly followed him and saw him retrieve a package from the fire cabinet. After Kyung-jun left, Curly quickly opened the cabinet. Inside was a bloody axe. Could Kyung-jun really be the killer? Last night, the guy with the side part was still mourning his deceased deskmate. Fed up with life, he was contemplating stepping in front of a speeding car. But he happened to spot Kyung-jun hurrying by with a bag in hand. Curly-haired guy was furtively tailing him. Intrigued, side part decided to follow Curly. Curly trailed Kyung-jun to an abandoned warehouse. Suddenly, he was attacked from behind. Kyung-jun had already noticed he was being followed. Curly saw that the bag Kyung-jun carried contained a blood-stained jacket, leading him to suspect Kyung-jun was there to dispose of evidence. Kyung-jun claimed he was also being framed. As they fought, they suddenly realized someone was hiding outside. They rushed out and apprehended side part, stubbornly convinced that Kyung-jun and Curly were responsible for his deskmate's death. Side part wouldn't back down. During the struggle, his head hit the concrete, incapacitating him. Knowing he couldn't explain the situation, Kyung-jun decided to go all in. He grabbed a brick and hit side part. Curly, unable to stand by, reluctantly took the brick and delivered the final blow. Meanwhile, Jun-he pulled So-mai aside and told her to stop targeting Seo. So-mai quickly defended herself. "Wasn't voting for Seo last night to save you?" Jun-he seemed to realize something and said So-mai was only looking out for herself. So-mai was clearly annoyed. It was a classic case of love turned to hate. Later, while meeting with close friends, Jun-he stumbled upon the camera left behind by their deceased classmate. He showed Seo a paused image from the camera, something that had been puzzling him. Flipping through other photos, Seo discovered that all the faces were blurred, just like in the previous strange picture. She started taking pictures around the room, trying to figure out how the images changed. Suddenly, there was a noise under the table. Seo bravely peeked underneath but found nothing. Then, a figure appeared beside her. She looked under the table again, still finding nothing unusual. But now, a key lay on the floor. The moment Seo picked it up, she received a text message urging her to find the owner of the game. When Jun-he and the others arrived, Seo quickly took a few pictures of them, noticing their faces were also blurred, like some sort of automatic beauty filter. She then showed them the key, inviting them to join her in finding the game's owner. But Jun-he and the others were confused. They hadn't received any game notifications. Could this be a hidden quest specifically for Seo? Analyzing her unique characteristics, she frequently encountered the long-haired ghost girl. Could she be the owner of the game? Back at the warehouse, the dying side part watched in resentment as his attackers fled. He recalled the first day, when roles were assigned. He was lucky enough to become the doctor a special role. Witnessing his classmates die one by one, he used his immunity power on himself. The next day, however, the person he cared for was killed by the wolves. When he tried to use his power again, the system informed him he had to wait 48 hours. No wonder he'd been so despondent lately. On the third night, he overheard Jun-he's promise to Zo. So, when Jun-he claimed to be a wolf, he didn't hesitate to use his immunity power on him. This was the first time Side Part, as the doctor, had truly made a difference. Meanwhile, Seo continued to search for clues about the game's owner. Returning to the warehouse where she found the photo, she discovered the album in the safe was gone. Suddenly, the system announced, Side Part has died. His role was the doctor. Everyone rushed to the scene. There were signs of a struggle everywhere. Seo concluded he was murdered, not killed by the game. After Jun-he and the others moved the body, Seo, out of habit, started gathering clues. Footprints in the corner, she had to photograph them. Before Curly could understand what was happening, Seo noticed a wound on his hand. He couldn't deny it any longer. He instinctively tried to implicate Kyung-jun. Kyung-jun slipped up. "Didn't you hit him with the brick?" Seo and her roommate simultaneously recognized the mistake. They hadn't mentioned the murder weapon was a brick. Moreover, there were footprints at the scene with no tread marks. They must belong to Kyung-jun. At this point, he had no more denials, only directing his anger at Curly. Jun-he stepped in to intervene, but was punched in the face. His fury ignited, and he unleashed a barrage of punches on Kyung-jun. The others struggled to separate them. Suddenly, they noticed a red paint marker on the ground. Curly was stunned. He didn't know how it got there. Kyung-jun quickly stepped forward, confidently declaring that Curly had written the message on the wall. Only a werewolf would do something so divisive. Unpersuaded, Jun-he stated that Kyung-jun was also a suspect. They decided to detain both of them and discuss who to vote for. Du demanded Kyung-jun hand over the supermarket key, worried he might escape. The vice president checked his pockets, but the key wasn't there. Jeong-won, quick thinking, suggested confiscating both their phones. This would prevent them from running, as anyone who didn't vote by midnight would be eliminated by the system. Everyone present clearly remembered this rule. Reluctantly, Kyung-jun and Curly handed over their phones. After locking them in a room, Du and the vice president secretly sought out Da-bum, the smartest student in the class, proposing they work together to get Kyung-jun's supermarket key. The supermarket's rolling shutter, which even Du couldn't break, was the safest place to hide at night. Meanwhile, Seo kindly tended to Jun-he's wounds. He happened to notice a bottle of Yo's antiseptic on the table. Wasn't that what the police used to write on the wall? Night fell. Everyone gathered to decide who to vote for. They hoped to deduce which of Kyung-jun and Curly was the werewolf. The vice president suggested withholding their phones so both killers would be eliminated. Jun-he felt uneasy. If they mistakenly eliminated a civilian, it would put them at a disadvantage. The vice president then proposed asking the police to use their investigative skills. Seo immediately objected. The police's identity had to remain secret, or they would be targeted by the werewolves. Locked in the room, Curly and Kyung-jun glanced nervously at the clock. Waiting for potential death was agonizing. As midnight approached, Jun-he and the others finally reached a decision. For safety, he told everyone to find hiding places while he returned the phones. But Da-bum, the smartest student, volunteered to go with Jun-he, each returning one phone. No one thought much of it and scattered to find hiding spots, the only way to avoid being killed by the werewolves. Soon, Jun-he opened the door and returned Curly's phone. The first thing Curly did was vote for Kyung-jun. Immediately, his phone buzzed repeatedly. Everyone had voted for him. This was the planned outcome, as Curly's behavior seemed more suspicious. He had harmed someone and impersonated the police. All signs pointed to him being the werewolf. Curly was furious and started crying, claiming he was framed, but Jun-he paid no attention to his baseless pleas. Kyung-jun also learned of the group's decision. Da-bum thought to himself, that was close. He had written the message on the wall, pretending to be the police, then planted the paint marker on Curly. It seemed like a foolproof plan. As Leo was about to ask Da-bum for his phone back, Du and the vice president entered. Clearly having discussed it beforehand, they announced that the supermarket key had to be surrendered before the phones were returned. Kyung-jun's eyes flashed with anger. He couldn't believe Da-bum, whom he used to bully, was now threatening him. But he quickly suppressed his rage and led them to the fire extinguisher cabinet where the key was hidden. He then politely asked Da-bum for his phone. Da-bum led him to a room. Suspicious, Kyung-jun demanded his phone. Da-bum became firm. After all, he wasn't the one at risk. Furious, Kyung-jun strode into the room and cast his vote. Da-bum seized the opportunity, slammed the door shut, and wedged it with a prepared prop. Trapped, Kyung-jun roared in frustration, but no amount of force could budge the door. The system announced, "Curly has received the most votes and will be eliminated." Panicked, he tried to escape the room, but a sudden, splitting headache overwhelmed him. His eyes rolled back, and he jumped from the balcony. The system announced again, Curly's role was civilian. Jun-he froze upon hearing the news. He couldn't believe everyone had misjudged the situation. Without pausing, he made his way to the building's rooftop and jumped, landing in a small, inconspicuous pit. Hidden here, he thought, no one would find him. But Kyung-jun wasn't so fortunate. With his curly wig gone and his civilian status revealed, he became the prime suspect once again. In truth, the bloody axe and jacket found near him had been planted. Just then, Da-bum approached, carrying a bag, his expression complex. Recalling every instance of Kyung-jun's bullying, he asked in a hoarse voice, "How does it feel to be messed with by a coward like me?" Unable to bear the humiliation, Kyung-jun flew into a rage, unleashing a flurry of punches and kicks. Just as he was about to finish Da-bum off, the clock struck midnight. Da-bum had clearly planned this. Kyung-jun promptly collapsed, falling fast asleep. Da-bum, however, remained unfazed. He was the hidden wolf all along. Unexpectedly, Kyung-jun stirred and sat up. Before the good student could comprehend what was happening, he collapsed again. He had merely mustered a last burst of energy. A triumphant smirk spread across Da-bum's face. With Kyung-jun now like a fish on a chopping block, he was free to torment the person he hated most. The next morning, everyone awoke to the news of Kyung-jun's civilian status, a wave of mixed emotions washing over them. He had been the most likely suspect. Now, they were lost in confusion. The hidden wolf was truly cunning, always able to mislead them and lead them to false conclusions. True to form, Da-bum began manipulating the others. He told Yeon-woo and Yoon-chan, "Yesterday, Seo pointed to Kyung-jun and the curly-haired person as the prime suspects. They both died as civilians. That girl's identity is highly suspicious." Meanwhile, So-mai was also instigating her two friends. Seo could very well be the wolf. Mai-na, however, had her own suspicions. She called So-mai to the deserted mini-mart and declared, "Da-bum is the wolf." So-mai was stunned. Mai-na explained, "Yesterday, only the three of us knew Kyung-jun was locked in the storage room. Eliminating you and me, that leaves only Da-bum." So-mai panicked, unsure how to defend her wolf teammate. At that moment, Yeon-woo and Han happened to pass by. They were surprised. "How do you two have the key to the mini-mart?" So-mai's face paled. She couldn't admit to forcing Kyung-jun to hand it over. That would certainly implicate her as an accomplice. In her panic, she couldn't formulate a believable explanation. Yeon-woo jumped to a terrifying conclusion. "Are you two trying to hoard all the food here?" Relieved, So-mai gestured generously. "Take whatever you want, Yeon-woo." Meanwhile, Seo Jun-he and the others focused on finding the game master. They searched the office high and low, finally discovering a suspicious filing cabinet. The lock was sturdy, resistant even to the mission key. Jun-he decided to go to the storage room for tools to pry it open. There, he stumbled upon Kyung-jun's phone in a corner. Back in the office, Seo suddenly heard a click from the filing cabinet. The lock had sprung open on its own. An antique wooden box caught her eye. The mission key fit perfectly into its brass lock. Inside was a single photograph. It was a class photo. Everyone simultaneously received a message, "The game master is Park Si-yoon." A suppressed memory flooded back. There had been a classmate named Park Si-yoon who had tragically taken her own life by jumping into a river. The scratched photograph Seo had found earlier, the only person unscathed was Park Si-yoon. But somehow, everyone's memories of her had been sealed. No one recognized the class photo for what it was. Only after Seo completed the mission were their memories unlocked. Now, everyone was even more puzzled. How were the memories sealed? Park Si-yoon had been gone for a long time, so how could she have started the game? What was her purpose? Seo, having been close to Park Si-yoon, knew a lot about her personal life. She felt that Park Si-yoon had been driven to her death by certain individuals. Could this game be her way of taking revenge on those who wronged her? Everyone began to review the wolves who had been eliminated, realizing they all had some conflict with Park Si-yoon. Lena's face was grim. She called So-mai outside and said with a choked voice, "Please, let's apologize to Park Si-yoon together. After all, her death is related to us." So-mai was consumed with guilt. It was just a joke. Besides, she's already gone. Are we supposed to apologize to a ghost? After leaving, So-mai secretly sought out Da-bum to discuss their next move. She worried that Lena wouldn't be able to withstand the pressure and reveal the truth about the bullying. It turned out Da-bum had also participated. It seemed Seo was right. Park Si-yoon started this game to take revenge on those who bullied her. All of them had been assigned the role of wolf. Da-bum no longer displayed his usual timidity. He threatened So-mai to come up with a plan quickly. Otherwise, she would be the next to kick the bucket. But So-mai wasn't easily intimidated. She immediately thought of a counterattack. She subtly reminded Mai-na that when Park Si-yoon was being bullied, the timid Da-bum would often seek her out to talk. But immediately realizing Da-bum was her teammate, she quickly changed her tune. "Lena is also very suspicious." Then she instructed Mai-na, "When we vote, you must follow my lead." Jun-he called Seo to the storage room. He had found Kyung-jun's phone there. Behind the door, there were signs of a struggle. They both thought of Da-bum, the last person to see Kyung-jun yesterday. As midnight approached, the surviving students gathered to vote. Jun-he and Seo questioned Da-bum, "You were the last person to see Kyung-jun yesterday, weren't you?" Panicked, Da-bum dragged So-mai and Mai-na into it, claiming the three of them had gone to see Kyung-jun together. At this moment, Han and Da-pang realized the mini-mart key was the one they had taken from Kyung-jun. So-mai denied it, saying she saw Kyung-jun hide the key in the fire extinguisher cabinet. Everyone looked at her suspiciously, recalling So-mai's own conflict with Park Si-yoon. Trying to maintain her composure, So-mai suddenly took out her phone and voted for Lena, declaring, Lena was the one who spread Park Si-yoon's sensitive video. Mai-na nodded in agreement. Lena was horrified. "That's a blatant lie. Why are you framing me?" But her explanation lacked any conviction. Seeing everyone's suspicious gazes, Lena suddenly became resolute. "Then let's see which one of us is the wolf." With that, she took out her phone. Just then, the loudspeaker suddenly announced, "The police have used their investigative skill. So-mai is the wolf." Everyone was stunned. Unexpectedly, the silent police officer was Lena all along. So-mai trembled in fear. As her classmates condemned her, she finally broke down. "I didn't want to be the wolf." Everyone scoffed. "Were you planning to eliminate all of us?" So-mai could only turn to Jun-he, the most approachable person, and plead for mercy. But he resolutely voted for her. The others followed suit, taking out their phones. Da-bum stepped forward, shoving So-mai as she tried to stop them from voting. She glared at him, about to expose Da-bum as a wolf, when she suddenly coughed up blood. The system warned, revealing the identity of a wolf is forbidden. So-mai couldn't speak anymore. Da-bum breathed a sigh of relief. "Everyone, go hide." In an instant, only So-mai remained in the hall. She looked at the imposing stone statue not far away, suddenly remembering Park Si-yoon, the girl she had wronged. Then, a sharp pain shot through her head, and her eyes rolled back. On the rooftop, Lena recalled the first day of the game. When she was assigned the role of police, she had used her investigative skill for the first time on the boy she secretly admired. Although he was a civilian, he was soon eliminated by the game. Then there was Jun-he's apparent suicide. She had used her investigative skill to confirm he wasn't a wolf and written the results on the wall to inform everyone. Not long after midnight, all the players fell back asleep. The remaining wolf quietly stepped out, looked at their fallen comrade, eyes open in death, then turned to the statue and said, "Take care of the cop." Before the next day, when everyone woke up, they heard the news that Lena had been killed by the wolf. Jun-he was the first to rush to the scene. He collapsed, falling to the ground. Lena's death was clearly a huge shock to him. The others gathered in the main hall. Now, with only a few left, Anyone could be the next victim, but there were no clues about the wolf. Everyone was lost in confusion again. At this time, Jun-he went to find Seo. He said he had a way to find the hidden wolf. It turned out that last night, Lena had asked Jun-he, the person she trusted most, to meet her on the rooftop. She knew she would certainly become the wolf's target and deeply regretted not having made better use of her cop role earlier. Before dying, she wanted to do one last thing for everyone. Jun-he couldn't bear to watch Lena die, so he deliberately chose a very discreet place to hide. But he still followed her advice, spraying fluorescent powder at the entrance. Every location with a loudspeaker and phone would issue a warning. As long as they followed the trail of white powder, they would be safe. This powder is normally invisible, but it glows under ultraviolet light. Simply checking everyone's souls would reveal who had gone to see Lena. Da-bum said, "She's already gone. Who knows if you're telling the truth?" Jun-he immediately showed everyone a video on his phone. It turned out he had recorded the entire preparation process yesterday. Now, no one dared to object, letting Jun-he turn on the ultraviolet light and start checking everyone one by one. When it was Da-bum's turn, his feet showed no reaction. On the other hand, a faint glow appeared on the side of Mai-na's shoes. Everyone, including her, was stunned. Jun-he demanded that Mai-na provide evidence proving she wasn't the wolf. If she couldn't, she should be prepared to be voted out. Yeon-woo excitedly rushed forward to question her, but was pushed back. Seo hurriedly stepped forward, shining the ultraviolet light on the soles of Yeon-woo's shoes again. They didn't glow, indicating she hadn't entered the bathroom, only that a little powder had gotten on the edge of her shoes. She advised everyone, "Don't act rashly. Wait until 11 p.m. to decide on the vote." Jun-he didn't argue but silently walked away. Seo and Jeong-won ran to the bathroom, where Lena had died. After shielding the light, a large patch of fluorescent markings appeared on the floor. The wolf's shoes should have definitely picked up the powder, unless they had entered barefoot. Jeong-won, with a keen eye, climbed up the ventilation shaft and discovered a bloodstain on a protruding nail. It was likely left by the killer because there were no such obvious wounds on Lena's body. After Jeong-won discussed this with Jiu, she confirmed that there were no such wounds on Lena. They sat down to discuss eliminating the possibility of Yeon-woo being the killer. This wolf was truly skilled. Not only did they easily find Lena hiding in the ventilation shaft, but they also discovered the fluorescent powder tracking method. They even used this to frame Lena. Could they really be aided by a vengeful spirit? The wolf in this game was too ferocious. In just a few short days, they had almost eliminated all their opponents. The villagers analyzed the situation and concluded that the wolf was always deliberately manipulating events to mislead them. They were like fools, being played like puppets. Seo was determined to take the initiative. She devised a plan to lure the wolf out into the open. Jun-he sent a message to everyone. He had found the camera that Lena had secretly placed before she died. It was currently charging in the dining hall. Once it was turned on, they would know who the killer was. Everyone who read the message was elated, except for the wolf, who was panicked. Yesterday, during the act, they hadn't seen any cameras. To avoid being exposed, they had to go to the dining hall and delete the video. This was precisely the effect Seo and Jun-he wanted. Although the camera story was fabricated, they were sure the killer wouldn't sit still. Next, they just needed to observe who tried to act alone. Jeong-won and Jiu overheard that Yeon-woo had run to the infirmary. They looked at each other. At the scene of Lena's death yesterday, there were marks left by the killer. Whoever had a wound on their body was the most suspicious. They hurried to the infirmary and found Yeon-woo bandaging a wound. At the same time, Da-bum, the top student in the class, and also the true wolf, quietly arrived at the dining hall. He nervously picked up the camera on the table, but there was no recording inside. Jun-he and Seo emerged from the shadows, confidently declaring Da-bum, the top student, as the killer. But just then, Jeong-won and the others dragged Yeon-woo to the dining hall, pointing at him and claiming he was the killer because of a clear wound on his body. Da-bum, standing behind them, almost laughed. Just as Jun-he turned around and caught his expression, Da-bum quickly suppressed his smile, saying he had only come to the dining hall to check if the camera was charged. Then, he countered, "Yeon-woo, how did you get injured?" Yeon-woo frantically explained that he had discovered the wound upon waking up this morning. After speaking, he immediately took out his phone and voted for Da-bum. Da-bum immediately voted for him in return. Everyone was stunned, with Yeon-woo reacting the most strongly. The suspicion cast on everyone angered Mai-na, and she also voted for Yeon-woo. But Seo insisted that Da-bum was the wolf. His solo trip to check the camera was highly suspicious. Jun-he asserted even more firmly, Da-bum wanted to delete the video. Both of them voted for Da-bum. Seeing a glimmer of hope, Yeon-woo hurriedly tried to persuade his close friend Han to vote for Da-bum. That way, he would be sure to win. Unexpectedly, Jeong-won suddenly questioned Yeon-woo. Why did you hide your injury from your best friend? After saying this, Jeong-won voted for Yeon-woo. Seo felt her friend was being rash, and Yeon-woo became even angrier. He shoved Yoon-chan, who was trying to intervene, away, sarcastically saying, "Everyone's a wolf." Immediately afterward, he received another vote. The vote came from his best friend. Yeon-woo reproached, "You're my best friend." Then, he turned and walked away in despair. The outcome was now decided. No matter what he said, he couldn't change the fact that he had the most votes. Seeing Da-bum's smug face, Jun-he wanted to yell at him, but Da-bum didn't turn around, instead walking away to the second floor of the hotel. Da-bum stealthily observed everyone's hiding places. He couldn't contain his smile. He felt certain of victory. Meanwhile, Jun-he was now certain that Da-bum was the wolf. Jeong-won spoke up urgently, "It's useless to talk now. We should find a place to hide." Seo asked, "Do you want to go together?" Jun-he replied cryptically, "Staying together will be more dangerous." Hearing this, Seo suddenly remembered something. At the time, Jun-he hadn't told anyone where Lena had died. But Jeong-won had led her directly to the bathroom. How did she know? Jeong-won replied, "It's the safest place in the entire hotel." She claimed it was her own deduction, but Seo felt this reason was too forced. Then, she recalled the matter of the killer's injury. It was Jeong-won who first discovered the blood-stained nail, and then, step by step, shifted suspicion to Yeon-woo. This was clearly a tactic used by the killer who had been accidentally injured to cover their tracks. Seeing Jeong-won's silence, Seo thought about the previously deleted surveillance video. Out of everyone, only Jeong-won, proficient with computers, could have done this. In reality, she should have thought of this sooner. Jeong-won was actually a character in the game created by her deceased best friend, Park Si-yoon. She remained cold and silent, tacitly acknowledging Seo's suspicions. In truth, all the planning and misdirection were orchestrated by her. People like Da-bum were merely pawns. The reason he was able to escape danger time and time again wasn't due to some ghost's help, but because of Jeong-won, a meticulous and cautious strategist supporting him. Learning the truth, Seo burst into tears. She never imagined that her most trusted roommate was the cruel mastermind behind it all. At the same time, Jun-he, searching for a place to hide, spotted Da-bum sneaking around. He quietly followed him to the restroom, which turned out to be filled with tools. This was enough proof for Jun-he that Da-bum was the hidden wolf. He considered finishing him off right there, but ultimately couldn't bring himself to do it. He saw the accumulated injuries on Da-bum's body, inflicted by Kyung-jun and his gang. Jun-he had intervened a few times, but it hadn't addressed the root of the problem. Instead, it had only emboldened Kyung-jun to bully Da-bum even more. Da-bum seemed to resent Jun-he even more than the bullies. A wave of exhaustion washed over Jun-he. He had always tried his best to protect everyone in the class, but how many of them actually appreciated it? He completely lost the motivation to continue fighting. He pleaded with Da-bum that if he had to attack someone, to target him and leave Zoe alone. Meanwhile, heartbroken, Yeon-woo sought solace in the convenience store. His best friend had just stabbed him in the back, and only food could fill the void in his heart. Unexpectedly, he ran into Mai-na, who was also trying to hide there. Remembering that she was the second person to vote for him, Yeon-woo decided to take her down with him before he met his end. But just then, the voting announcement rang out. Yeon-woo lost control, his eyes rolled back, and he started stuffing his mouth with snacks. He ended up choking to death amidst the pile of food. Mai-na, witnessing the whole ordeal, fled into the restroom to compose herself. In the infirmary, Yun Chan, upon hearing that his lost friend was a civilian, collapsed to the floor in regret. At the same time, Seo continued to cry in front of Jeong-won. She felt exhausted and didn't want to play this game anymore. As the hypnotic music played, she drifted off to sleep. In the restroom, Da-bum, preparing to eliminate Jun-he, was reminded by the system that he needed the approval of all the wolves before making a move. He yelled in frustration and rushed to Jeong-won, criticizing her. "Why didn't you warn me about the camera?" Jeong-won hastily explained that she knew about the plan, but couldn't warn him because they were surrounded by people. Furthermore, she pointed out that it was she who had instigated the conflict between Yeon-woo and Hans to salvage the situation. Da-bum relented, dropping the issue. He told Jeong-won that Jun-he had discovered his identity. With Yeon-woo gone, he had become the prime suspect. No matter who he eliminated, the game was essentially over. The only solution he could think of was to wipe out everyone that night. After all, the system hadn't explicitly stated that they could only eliminate one person per night. Jeong-won considered this and finally agreed. They decided that she would deal with Seo and Jun-he, while Da-bum would take care of the rest. He hesitated slightly, saying, "Jeong-won, you've never personally killed anyone. Don't screw up at this critical moment." Jeong-won reassured Da-bum and told him she would take Seo to the cold storage room where the bodies were kept. That way, even without directly killing her, she could give her close friend a fitting end. Da-bum didn't object, silently took Seo's phone, and left. Jeong-won then increased the temperature of the cold storage, indicating that she didn't intend to harm Seo. Da-bum knew where everyone else was hiding. First, he went to the infirmary and eliminated Yun Chan. Then, he went to the restroom in the convenience store and found Mai-na unconscious. However, he didn't act immediately, waiting for Jeong-won to confirm that Jun-he had been dealt with. Only then did he eliminate Mai-na, unsure if there would be penalties for wolves attacking multiple civilians at once. Shortly after, Jeong-won messaged that Seo was gone. Da-bum checked everyone's phones and noticed that Seo's was still lit. This meant she was still alive. He knew this system well. As long as someone was alive, their phone battery would always display 56%. If they died, the phone would immediately shut off. Da-bum rushed to the cold storage and asked Seo if she was really dead. Jeong-won retorted, "If you don't believe me, go see for yourself." Da-bum suddenly pulled out Seo's phone. "You're still lying to me at this point? You can't even bring yourself to kill. What kind of wolf are you?" With that, he stabbed her in the stomach. The system abruptly announced, "Wolves cannot harm each other." Jeong-won seized the opportunity, spraying Da-bum in the eyes with a can of spray and slamming the cold storage door shut. It took a while for Da-bum's vision to partially recover. He realized the temperature control system was malfunctioning. He wanted to take his anger out on Seo, but quickly realized she had been switched. Jeong-won had planned this all along. From the moment she realized Seo's phone was missing, Jeong-won had started looking for a body double and devised a plan to deal with Da-bum by trapping him in the freezing cold storage. Meanwhile, Seo was hiding in a restroom outside the cold storage. Jeong-won, careful during their earlier struggle, had retrieved Seo's phone. If all went according to plan, Da-bum wouldn't last more than half an hour in the sub-zero temperatures. But he fought desperately to survive, using the white cloth shrouding the body to keep warm. In his delirium, he seemed to see a basketball rolling towards him. Da-bum shuddered as a tall figure slowly approached. It was Kyung-jun, killed brutally by him once before. Da-bum screamed in terror. Only later did he realize it was a hallucination. Morning arrived. Seo woke up, and so did Jun-he. It turned out Jeong-won had spared him as well. With Mai-na and Yun Chan eliminated by Da-bum, only Seo and Jun-he remained as civilian players. They quickly found Jeong-won in the lobby, but felt no gratitude for her mercy. After all, only one side, either the wolves or the civilians, could survive. Jeong-won said she had her own reasons, then left them with a cryptic message, "Deal with Da-bum quickly." She turned and left. Unbeknownst to her, Da-bum had broken out of the cold storage overnight. Jeong-won tried voting through her phone and discovered he was still alive. Hearing the notification, Seo was about to vote as well, but Jun-he stopped her. Wait, voting for Da-bum now wouldn't eliminate him instantly. Moreover, there was still the unpredictable wolf, Young. Earlier, Jun-he had intended to learn more about Jeong-won. After she left, Seo discovered an extra box in her backpack. She recognized it as a birthday gift she had given to Jeong-won. Inside should have been a pair of friendship bracelets. But when she opened the box, she found a USB drive. Curious, she plugged it into a computer. It contained a simulation game, which included the strange maze she had encountered. Seo's memories began to return. She looked at the class photo again and realized Jeong-won wasn't in it. Finally, it all came back to her. Jeong-won was a character in the game created by her deceased best friend, Park Si-yoon. Suddenly, the door burst open. Seo turned around in horror. Meanwhile, Jun-he continued to press Jeong-won. "What are you really trying to do?" Jeong-won seemed impatient. The smart ones are the truly dangerous ones. Just then, they both received a message from Da-bum. "Want to save her? Then get to the rooftop." Without hesitation, they ran upstairs. Sure enough, they saw Seo being held hostage by Da-bum. He forced Jeong-won to jump off the roof and then told Jun-he to obediently find his own way to hell. Jeong-won remained calm. She understood that even if she jumped, Da-bum wouldn't spare Seo. Then, she shouted, "Forcing a teammate to commit suicide will be punished by the game." Da-bum faltered, increasingly panicked. Seo seized the opportunity and broke free from his grasp. Jun-he, nearby, quickly charged, but Da-bum knocked him down with a rock. Roaring, Da-bum lunged towards the two girls with a knife. Seeing the danger, Seo threw herself in front of Jeong-won, taking the fatal blow. Jun-he, regaining consciousness, witnessed this scene. Enraged, he lunged at Da-bum, and they grappled in the grass. Groans of pain filled the air. Jeong-won watched in horror as Da-bum stood up, a knife protruding from his stomach. As he collapsed, the announcement rang out, "Da-bum is dead." This time, Jun-he had finally not let anyone down. But Seo also took a hit. It seemed she wouldn't last much longer. With difficulty, she told Jeong-won, "I miss you so much, Park Si-yoon." It turned out that when Seo saw the contents of the USB drive, all her memories returned. That birthday gift was actually meant for her close friend, Park Si-yoon, and Jeong-won, standing before her, was Si-yoon's in-game avatar. Jeong-won said that she, too, had been forced into this situation. Seo tilted her head, on the verge of collapsing. Jeong-won's eyes suddenly hardened with resolve. She told Seo to hold on a little longer, then, without hesitation, walked to the edge of the rooftop. Jeong-won's body flickered strangely. Then, she jumped. The system announcement quickly rang out, "The last wolf is eliminated." The game ended with the villagers victorious. Terrifying experiences flashed back one after another. Seo suddenly opened her eyes, realizing she was connected to numerous metal wires. She looked around curiously and saw her classmates all asleep in high-tech chairs. At that moment, the large screen in front lit up, displaying everyone's information and the images they had experienced. Suddenly, two middle-aged people appeared. Seo immediately recognized them as Park Si-yoon's parents. Finally, she understood where she was. Park Si-yoon's parents blamed their daughter's death on her classmates, so they kidnapped them all to this laboratory, using virtual reality technology to force them to experience the most realistic werewolf game. After each round, their memories were reset to start a new game. This had been repeated dozens of times. Seo didn't understand. She and Jun-he were Park Si-yoon's best friends, so why were they also being punished? Park Si-yoon's mother became even angrier. "Precisely because you were her best friends, you should have helped her back then, not let her suffer all the pain alone." Hearing this, Seo felt even more guilt-ridden. She had always regretted not being there for Park Si-yoon during her difficult times. Now, she was willing to bear all responsibility, hoping only that they would release her classmates. Park Si-yoon's father softened slightly. It turned out they woke Seo up because there was a glitch in this round. They wanted to ask her directly about some details. Now, he had his answer. Seo was able to remember thanks to his daughter's in-game character. Moreover, in the previous rounds, there was no self-termination option. But his daughter, to save her classmates, had done just that. This proved that she had forgiven everyone. She didn't want this game to continue. Their so-called helping their daughter get revenge was actually just their own obsession. But Park Si-yoon's mother shook her head. She couldn't let go of her obsession. Soon after, Seo in the chair fell back asleep. When she woke up, she found herself on the original bus. She didn't notice anything at first. But as she saw the familiar scenes, Seo suddenly realized. Wasn't this the start of a new game?